No audio?
Oh man, I just can't.
Hello everybody, and welcome to part 2.2 of the Iceberg. Quick reminder to please go and support Bumbles before watching the video if you haven't already. Link at the top of the description, like always.
Concepts through gameplay. Yu-Gi-Oh's flavor and personality isn't just limited to the artwork of the cards, but can also be found in the text of the cards themselves.
The text and the effects sort of interconnecting with some of the stories that I know of from the Yu-Gi-Oh archetypes is indeed one of the cool parts of it. All these different aspects have to sort of circulate and interconnect with each other in order to really complete the package for me. And I think Yu-Gi-Oh does that quite well.
What a card does, and how it does it, can sometimes be just as important in fleshing out a deck's personality as the artwork is. Something Yu-Gi-Oh has gotten really good at is using the effects of a deck to convey the overall theme of what the archetype is going for, and how the effects and artwork can correlate. This is a little hard to explain without an example, so before he gets his coat on, let's drag Buster Blader back in. Buster Blader is a really simple example of this. In Universe, Buster Blader is a dragon hunter. So his effect is to gain attack whenever he fights dragons, and whenever he defeats a dragon. Gravekeeper monsters are meant to be guardians of an ancient pharaoh's tomb, and as such have the ability to negate effects that activate in the graveyard, because their job is to make sure the dead stay where they belong. These are about as simple as it gets, but taking a step further into the game's more complex archetypes reveals so many interesting ways that artwork and gameplay can be merged. Take a deck like Mecha Phantom Beasts. This is a deck of different aerial combat vehicles that all share effects to summon Mecha Phantom Beast tokens. When a token is on the field, the opponent can't target a Mecha Phantom Beast for attacks, and instead has to destroy the token first. This token generation effect is meant to mirror the lore that the Mecha Phantom Beasts are generating decoys that divert attacks away from the main body. That's
really
why
cool.
You can't destroy a Mecha Phantom Beast while the token is up. Your monster is confused by the duplication. Nemorelia is a pendulum archetype with only a single pendulum monster. And while the other cards in the deck are these massive hulking monsters made out of sweets and cake, the pendulum monster is a sleeping little girl. She has an effect to place herself in the extra deck, and the rest of the monsters banish extra deck cards for their effects. Once the extra deck is empty, say for Nemorelia, you can special summon her, blow up the field, and then she puts everything back. The theme of the deck is that Nemorelia is sleeping and dreaming up these monsters, and the more she summons, the more time she spends, represented by losing extra deck cards. Once she runs out of time, or you run out of extra deck cards, she wakes up and throws a tantrum about having to wake up, being her destroying all the opponent's cards. Then once she realizes that she's going to be in trouble for blowing all this stuff up, she starts putting stuff back, represented by her putting cards back in the extra deck. They manage to turn Little Girl Dreams of Snacks into an archetype.
That is so freaking cool, actually. Because we don't fundamentally change how the game is played. We're just utilizing the different mechanics to our game in new and unique ways in order to fit the themes of the deck. Because when you take a look at something like Shadowverse, when you play a different archetype, it usually is going to have its own unique mechanic that isn't really something universal that carries over to other people, except in some pretty niche cases. But with something like Yu-Gi-Oh here, these are the things that everybody can use and do. It's just that we use them differently. And for whatever reason, I just think that's a lot cooler than just having a unique mechanic for a specific archetype that is sort of locked to that archetype.
And convince you that it works based on how the game words its effects. Super Quants are one of Yu-Gi-Oh's 50 tokusatsu-themed archetypes, and how they're handled is one of the best executions of a concept through gameplay of them all.
Really?
Each of the 4 main deck Super Quants has an associated mech they can pilot, the Super Quantal Mech Beasts. You can use any of the Super Quants to pilot any of the Super Quantal Mech Beasts, but if you don't pick the right one, then it's not going to work at full capacity. Only by having the proper color-coded Ranger and Mech are you going to get the full results. This is represented by making the Super Quantal Mech Beasts Xyz monsters, having them be unable to attack if they don't have Xyz material, giving them an effect if they do have Xyz material, and giving them a quick effect if the Xyz material attached to the Xyz monster is the color-coordinated Ranger. So, Super Quantal Mech Beast Magna Liger can destroy an opponent's card, but can only do it on the opponent's turn if one of its material is red layer. Ouroboros can flip a card face down, but only if it has green layer as material. So on and so forth. Even their support cards keep up the Super Sentai theming, like Magna Formation, locking your opponent out of affecting you during the main phase, because the monsters never attack the Rangers when they're transforming or forming their Megazord.
Oh man, that's so fun. Oh, how can we adapt these concepts that we're being inspired by, taking inspiration from, in the format of Yu-Gi-Oh? That is so fun.
Sous-ships are an archetype of giant
these guys.
sushi boats.
I played them.
Already top-tier wordplay.
Yes.
The Xyz monsters of the deck, though, all vary depending on what monster you overlay with the normal monster Gunkin Sous-ship Shari, and only get their full effects if you use the right other monster. So, Gunkin Sous-ship Uniclass Super Dreadnought only gets its full potential if you combine Shari with Gunkin Sous-ship Uni, because as the sushi chef, it's your job to prepare the dish correctly with the correct ingredients. This gets taken even further by their
The opponent on the other side is like, what is bro cooking? Yeah, just wait and see.
card Sous-ship Catch of the Day. Here you have to reveal a Sous-ship Xyz monster, and then your opponent makes you add any Sous-ship monster they declare from your deck to your hand. And if the spell card is destroyed, your opponent has to pay 500 life points. The card simulates your opponent entering a sushi shop, you make a recommendation by revealing an Xyz monster, they make their order, either taking your recommendation or ordering whatever they want, and then once the card is destroyed, they pay for their meal with their life points. This is
Pay
what I'm
with your
talking about
life.
when I say so much of Yu-Gi-Oh's flavor comes from how they use the verbiage of the cards to represent a scenario. Other cards with a similar effect would say your opponent takes 500 points of damage. Not here. They specifically use the mechanic of paying life points to emulate paying for a meal. Okay, this one's gonna be really hard to explain.
Oh,
Try
no.
to follow along.
Oh no, not the Flower Guardians one. I actually did play this. I am sorry to admit it, I did. I ran up against somebody who I threw Maxi at, and they were like, I bet. and then I got decked out by this, so I'm like, you know what? Fine, fuck it. I'll do it myself. It is one of those Yu-Gi-Oh decks where you don't interact with your opponent at all. You just keep on special summoning.
Take out a piece of paper and pencil if you need to. Flower Guardians are the most unique and hard to comprehend archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because they don't really play Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
Not in the Floodgate way, like the different game way. You have a few Flower Guardians that can be special summoned under various conditions, including drawing the correct card from your deck or controlling an additional Flower Guardian. These can have attack totals of either 100, 1000, or 2000. There are also additional cards for each Flower Guardian of the same level, that can be special summoned by tributing Guardians with the same level. Each one of them will also have slightly altered artwork, like putting a crane on the artwork of Flower Guardian Pine, or a curtain and arms to Flower Guardian Cherry Blossom. The tuners of the deck then have the ability to treat all monsters you control as level 2, which allows you to go into various Synchro Flower Guardians, who are suddenly not pieces of art, but normal-looking Yu-Gi-Oh monsters. What's the theme here? Flower Guardians are meant to represent Hanafuda cards.
Yep.
A traditional card set in Japan that can be used for various games like how we use poker cards. The levels of each of the Flower Guardians represent a different suit of cards in Hanafuda, with level 1 being Pine, level 3 being Cherry Blossoms, and level 8 being Zebra Grass. The additional cards in each level represent higher value cards in the same suit, with their attack points reflecting the point totals in Hanafuda. So a normal Pine card is worth 1 point, but Pine with Crane and Sun is worth 10 points. So Pine has 100 attack, while Pine with Crane has 1,000 attack. The synchros you can go into represent various combos you can pull off in the game Koi Koi, a game played using Hanafuda cards. And each of their summoning requirements and levels mirror the Yaku combos in Koi Koi. A card like Flower Cardian Light Flare is based on Goko, the Koi Koi Yaku requiring all 5 high-value cards to pull off. Light Flare then requires 5 cards for its Synchro Summon, and is level 10, with that being double the cards required for its summon. That explains why the tuners of the deck convert all the monsters into being level 2. That way, any combination of them can come out to an even number and represent a Hanafuda combo. This carries across all 4 of their Synchro monsters, with Moonflower Viewing being level 6 and requiring 3 cards like the Hanamezake combo.
6, 8, and 10.
Boardfly needing 3 like Inoshikacho, and Light Shower needing 4 like Ameshiko. This is a deck that chooses to throw away any hopes of being near playable in order to go all in on its theming.
Yeah, 100%. This is not the deck that you play in order to win. You play this because you think the theming is cool and you don't want to play Yu-Gi-Oh! With anybody else, just yourself. Honestly though, I tried to keep up with all the explanations. My mind is somewhere a minute ago, or 2, or 3. It's probably because I just don't know how Hanafuda is played, and I've never actually seen anything where Hanafuda was featured. I know there's an anime that like specifically is about Hanafuda, or like a character that plays Hanafuda that Kiwi has seen, but I haven't watched that one before. Regardless though, it's really cool, especially if you know how the game is played, or like you're just a fan of Hanafuda, and then you see this particular archetype here, maybe it clicks with you. Not the most meta thing, but I don't know, it's something that you enjoy. And there's something here for everybody.
And while playing against, or as a Flower Cardian deck is as confusing as it sounds, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is all the better for having decks like it.
Yeah, variety.
Obscure Archetypal Origins. Now, I've had my fun talking about how strange archetypes can be, but this section is an addendum to that, because if you thought Luke Skywalker in ruby slippers or the Mad Hatter asking for your bank details was a lot, they're not even close to the strangest. The spectrum of sources that Yu-Gi-Oh! Takes for inspiration for its archetypes is so broad that even with all the ones I've already brought up, we haven't scratched the surface of how strange they can become. These archetypes are much better examples to show just how obtuse they can be.
Doesn't Six Samurai have like some sort of FTK? I don't recall if it was banned or if it's just super incredibly hard to pull off, but I'm pretty sure that there was some sort of combo before. Saw a video on it once. That or it just utilized the Six Samurai card.
First major example is one of Yu-Gi-Oh!'s most recognizable archetypes, Red Dragon Archfiend. One would assume, by looking at him, that Red Dragon Archfiend was based on how mean a big red dragon would be. But his origins are actually biblical in nature.
Really?
See, Red Dragon Archfiend skews more human-shaped, as opposed to more serpentine dragons like Slifer, or more European-style dragons like Blue Eyes.
I guess
Across
so,
his
yeah.
various evolutions in the anime, and especially the manga, this change becomes all the more noticeable, culminating in hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity, who looks the most
is
like a
such a fun
human out of the
card.
whole lineup. There isn't a parallel world mythology with human-shaped dragons, right? Well, there is one. And the reasoning for this is because Red Dragon Archfiend draws inspiration from a series of paintings done by painter William Blake from 1800 to 1810. These paintings depict an interpretation of Satan from the Book of Revelations in the King James Bible, shown as a beast with 7 heads and 7 crowns. The curved horns in particular, which span across the various paintings, are a design feature present in every Red Dragon Archfiend variant. In fact, the name Red Dragon Archfiend, which in Japan is instead Red Demon's Dragon, is a reference to the source of inspiration being Satan. Those crowns on the original Red Dragon painting are also most likely the source of inspiration for giving Jack Atlas the kingly theme that he has. King Calamity in particular not only looks the closest to this depiction of Satan, but has a pose most closely resembling the third painting in the series, the Great Red Dragon and the Beast from the Sea. A far more obscure archetype.
Okay, that is pretty darn obscure. How did we find that, and how did we make it into Red Dragon Archfiend? I had to assume that whoever was behind the particular archetype was somehow a fan of that, or knew of it, or was looking for inspiration and stumbled upon it in some way. This might be the kind of thing that we'll just never know, because it's, it all happening behind the scenes, and nobody was really recording all that stuff. But it does make you wonder, like, in what sort of scenario that would happen.
Type with a similarly deep origin are the Nemesis monsters. Now,
Really?
You've seen pretty much every Nemesis card be used independently. Corridor can summon out a powerful Thunder Dragon Colossus all on its own.
Yeah.
A flag can be used in Ritual Beast decks as a way to search out Corridor, or their extremely powerful boss monster, Arch-Nemesis Protoss. But something you might not know.
It is pretty interesting how all these cards are sort of used like sprinkled around in other archetypes. Because I believe Arch-Nemesis Protoss over here, is this the right one? I'm fairly certain it was the archetype like Soul Sword? Something like that? That was super popular, and it was like the tier 1 deck at the time when it released. And I believe one of the routes was to summon Arch-Nemesis Protoss.
Is what exactly they are. Nemesis is an extremely obtuse archetype thematically because the monsters don't really look like anything. The flag is a centaur, Umbrella is a jellyfish, Corridor is a harpy, and they all have globes instead of heads. Then you get onto the Arch-Nemesises, and oh thank god they're just dragons. Well, Nemesis has an extremely interesting thematic connection to Greek mythology. But not with gods or monsters, but astrology. Each of the main deck Nemesis monsters represents a different ecological conservation term. Flag represents flagship species, animal species with a good social image that are used to promote conservation efforts. Umbrella refers to umbrella species, who are species that, through their conservation, allow for the conservation of several other species in order to protect it. Think pandas requiring the maintenance of bamboo forests. Keystone is in reference to keystone species, species with a singular massive impact on their surrounding ecosystem. Think beavers constructing dams, or wolves in Yellowstone keeping down deer populations. That's why they all have globes for heads. These monsters represent a state of ecological stasis. So then, what are the Arch-Nemesis?
Okay, wow, that is certainly one of the more obscure concepts to be turned into card art. I suppose basically everything and anything is available and nothing is off limits. As long as you have enough creativity, you can create something new out of it.
Well, Protoss and Eschatos get their names from the Greek words meaning first and last, and are based on a hypothetical star from ancient Greek mythology called Nemesis. This was a star said to have been responsible for both of Earth's previous mass extinctions, and its future ones, done by the star's gravity launching meteors at the planet. Protoss and Eschatos' effect allow them to destroy monsters of either a specific type or attribute, and then seal the summons of either one of those until the end of the next turn. Where the Nemesis represent ecological preservation, the Arch-Nemesis represent ecological destruction, both being mass extinction events brought about by Nemesis. It's no wonder why their one spell card, Nemesis Adrasti, features a meteor hurling at the viewer. As an archetype, prank kids might seem rather basic. You got one for each of the main attributes, aside from light and dark, like they need the f***ing exposure. And they're based on old Hanna-Barbera cartoons, right? They get chased by a dog, turn the...
Yeah, but like, what are they based off of then? There are certainly many archetypes in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you can just tell I have no idea what prank kids are. Not that I knew what the other ones were based off of, obviously, but like, I don't know, man. I thought this was more of an original idea.
Tables on him by fusing into big monsters, destroy the house, and cause a mess. Well, that's half the story, but the other half involves scientist Max Planck. This is the face Prank Kids players made when Meow Moo got banned. Max Planck was a super famous German scientist from the 19th and 20th centuries, rubbing shoulders with the likes of Nernst and Einstein. One of the fields he did research into was wavelengths, which are the other major source of inspiration for the Prank Kids. Yes, you might have noticed how the prank in Prank Kids is meant to be a corruption of Planck.
Planck?
Due to the two's similar pronunciation in Japanese. Each one of the main deck Prank Kid monsters is based on a different type of wavelength, each one correlating to the Prank Kid's attribute. Dropsies is based on drop waves for water, Fansies is based on pulse waves for wind, and Lampsies is based on ramp waves for fire. Why does Roxy's not have any of these qualities? 'Cause he's dumb and the other Prank Kids bully him.
Damn.
A card I've mentioned previously is a classic Yu-Gi-Oh! Monster whose inspiration only became apparent years after its initial release. Simorg, Bird of Divinity is a classic, awful Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure deck boss. And aside from the two retrains into Bird of Ancestry and the actually good Dark Simorg, the deck didn't see any new support. Later on in the pack Rising Rampage, though, Simorg was made a proper archetype. And, confusingly, all of the monsters are named Simorg. Normally a deck like this would vary it up and name all the members something different. But here, the birds are all named the same. Bird of Beginnings looks like a young Bird of Divinity, but after that? Are you seriously trying to tell me that Bird of Calamity and Bird of Beginnings are meant to be the same guy? Well, kinda, yeah. That's because Simorg is based on the Persian legend of Simorg. In particular, the poem The Conference of Birds, in which a flock of all the world's birds travel to find the legendary Simorg in order to determine who the sovereign of the birds should be.
Okay, that is some pretty trippy art, not gonna lie. Kiwi's absolute worst nightmare, right here, in one picture. Oh, and just for some added context for people who may not know Kiwi very well, she has a phobia of birds.
In their travels, only 30 of the birds who left on the voyage make it to Simorg at the Albor's Peaks, only to find that in making the journey, each one of them has become a part of Simorg, and now the 30 of them will rule as one sovereign.
So that's why all of them are named Simorg. Technically the same, started out different.
The reason all the Simorg birds are named Simorg is because they've made the journey to Elborz, their field spell, and now ruled the land as one entity. That's why their final link monster is named Simorg, Bird of Sovereignty. I actually studied Iranian history in college and managed to read this story for myself. When I saw the title and found out what it was about, I was honestly shocked to make the connection. Yu-Gi-Oh's rich tapestry of archetypal origins is one of the best parts about it.
I love that feeling though, when you see something and then you connect it backwards in your mind to like something you love and already recognize, and it's like, wait a minute, did this end up inspiring this? And once again, it's one of the things that I really love about going and exploring all this video game lore stuff. There's so much that I missed out on, and all these different references are being made by so many different series to other series. Maybe some more popular ones, maybe some more obscure ones. It's just really cool to see all the lines start to connect.
And instead of keeping to just a fantastical, mythical setting, or one set in the far-flung future, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is able to have such an incredible diversity due to its untethered style. You can have your deck of goth mermaids go up against a business bureau made up of demons, or ancient Egyptian dragons trapped inside of balls go up against a children's coloring book. No other game is like Yu-Gi-Oh! For this, and it's my favorite part of the game.
Hell yeah. So much diversity to the archetypes too.
Problem-solving card text. As any game advances and gets more complicated, rules need to be set in stone more and made understandable, in order to make it as easy as possible for new players to understand what's going on. Yu-Gi-Oh! At the beginning of its lifespan was the most confusing game you could play because it didn't really understand itself. Yu-Gi-Oh! Effect text was worded in a way where effects kinda just had to be mutually understood for the game to function. In its first Japanese printing, a card like Raigeki said, "Destroy all of your opponent's monsters." Okay, field, hand, deck, binder, take out the lighter and burn them all.
Oh yeah, actually true. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Wait, no. It has to specifically state where.
Clearly, it's meant to be just monsters on the field, but
Yeah.
the game didn't specify it. It just sort of requires you to know going in. What's worse, though, is that effect text in early Yu-Gi-Oh! Was written under the assumption that each card was the first time effect text would be used. Trap Hole was worded in a way where it was decided the card targeted the opponent's monster it destroyed, but then its upgraded form, Bottomless Trap Hole, doesn't target. And how are you supposed to tell that's the case from reading the card?
Okay, here it says the monster is destroyed and removed from play. And when it comes to Trap Hole, it says destroy the monster. Well, I don't know. I believe Bumbles mentioned this earlier, but it's probably the pitfall, like, no pun intended, of Yu-Gi-Oh! Not really using keywords within the card game. It's just really something that you're gonna have to get used to with specific rulings of specific cards, and that takes time and experience.
Just guess. There's no distinction or variance in how Trap Hole or Bottomless Trap Hole is written that would imply one targets and the other doesn't. There was also the specification of what effects did and how they interacted with other cards. A card like Vylon Epsilon can't be targeted with card effects. But what's targeting? The Tribute to the Doomed just says discard a card to destroy a card. Is that targeting? This sort of scatterbrained approach.
Discard a card to destroy a card. Is that targeting indeed? I don't remember anymore. And to be honest, I've never seen that card before, so I never ran into it, so I have no idea. I think newer Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards definitely are much clearer in this regard, because I don't recall having too much of an issue, like seeing which one targeted and which one didn't, because I believe the newer ones would specifically state target. But obviously because of Yu-Gi-Oh!'s unlimited format, you can play with basically any card from any era in your deck, so yeah, we're gonna have to come up with specific rulings for these.
To card design was completely unsustainable. And come the start of the Xyz era, Konami sought to bring their card design into congruity with what's called problem-solving card text. Starting from Generation Force onwards, all cards would use a standardized card format that would clearly lay out how a card is meant to work. For an example, let's look at Solemn Judgment. The original Solemn Judgment is a word soup that kind of explains what the card does. Pay half of your life points when your opponent either activates a magic or trap card, or summons a monster, including special summon, to negate the action and destroy the magic card, trap card, or summoned monster. The newly revised Solemn Judgment under problem-solving card text clearly lays out the three portions that can make up a card's text. The three big C's, the condition, the cost, and the effect. When a monster would be summoned, or a spell or trap card is activated. Everything before this colon is the condition. And once that's met, you can move on to pay the card's cost. In this case, half your life points. Then the effect is activated, which is to negate the card who met this card's condition.
That makes a lot more sense to kind of structure it in this way. Setting condition, effect, and results in sort of like almost like a programming language way. It makes everything so much easier to keep standardized in a readable format. And that's probably why I never had much issue when I was initially getting into Yu-Gi-Oh! Of course, I had my moments of trying to use MST to negate, which I believe one of you guys pointed out that MST is actually now an archetype that can negate, which is really funny. But regardless, yeah, this is such a good change to the game. I'm glad that they decided to finally put their foot down and really think about this. Otherwise, yeah, it would just be a much more messier soup than it currently is nowadays.
No don't get confused either. You don't need all 3 C's in order to have a card's text work. Some cards don't have conditions, other cards don't have costs. For compulsory evacuation device, the card has no cost, just the condition to target one monster and the effect to return it to the hand. And for card destruction, it has no condition or cost, just having both players discard their hand and draw a new one. This formatting is what's used up until this very day, and is applied to cards that get reprinted in newer packs from older sets. So a card like Trap Hole now specifies it targets the monster your opponent summons.
There you go, okay. I was wondering, because I'm pretty sure I used Trap Hole in my Trap Chicks deck, and I was never really confused on how it worked. So yeah, it was the new text underneath the card, under these rules.
And this would be applied to all cards that were meant to target, but never made it clear they did. How do they determine which cards will target and which ones don't?
Who knows? Non-targeting is so powerful, though.
Of course, in a game where effects get as complicated as Yu-Gi-Oh!, there were bound to be a few instances that weren't so peachy keen. And that's where Dark World comes in. Dark Worlds are a very unique archetype.
I love Dark World,
all their
though.
effects
It looks
activate
cool.
when they're discarded. Except they specify that they get these effects when they're discarded by card effects. So cards that discard for cost don't proc their effects.
Yeah,
the discard has to be the effect of the card.
I think this was where, when I tried to play Dark World, that I learned about this specific mechanic with Yu-Gi-Oh! And how you have to really look at the wording of a card.
A card like Tribute to the Doomed won't activate Dark World effects because the discard part of the card comes before the semicolon and is therefore the cost.
Yeah.
But a card like Gates of Dark World will, because the discard comes after the semicolon and is therefore the card's effect. It's difficult to understand why you can't activate Browse effect off of Lightning Vortex at first, but it's simple enough to understand when you read it out like that. Except for one of them. And wouldn't you know it, it's one of the most important ones. Snow, Unlight of Dark World.
Oh, doesn't Snow just give you any card? You can add one Dark World card from your deck to your hand. Yeah, she's like a cornerstone of the deck to search out your boss monster.
If this card is discarded to your graveyard by a card effect, if it was discarded from your hand to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, add one Dark World card from your deck to your hand, then special summon that target, if any, in defense position.
I forget how you proc this one. Isn't there like a specific card that makes it so you and your opponent draw one card? And then you discard a card from your hand, and technically that would qualify as your opponent discarding a card from your hand or something like that? Or like there were spells that would force your opponent to choose cards from your hand to discard and stuff. I know that there's ways to get around this specifically.
So a few cars crashed into this card's effect during the writing process, but let's use the 3 C's method to see if we can figure out what this card means. The condition is that this card needs to be discarded by a card effect. The cost is that... Okay, the method completely failed. Now contrast that with Fabled, where you get their effect no matter how they're discarded, and let's see who wins. Not us, obviously. We lost our alt art to make Fiendsmith greener.
RIP.
Missing the timing.
Ah, yeah, missing the timing. Oh. Now, this is going into more like high-level Yu-Gi-Oh! Play, but I believe there are certain ways you can do like a chain link of your effects in order to make it so that your opponent can't do anything in order to interrupt that, or other ways to force your opponent to miss timing, or like the particular battle phase that you're doing the effect in can certainly change what your opponent is able to respond with. I wonder if any card games have such a complex system when it comes to like the different phases and obviously the timing of activating effects.
So, our heads are all still on straight after the snow carousel ride, right? Well, good news! It's about to get worse. So, some cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Were written incorrectly, on purpose, as a joke. You would expect that when a card says it can do something, that it would be able to do it, right? No, because now we've reached cards that can miss their cue. So, missing the timing is a phenomenon where during the resolution of a card's effect, you miss the window where a card would be able to use its effect properly, usually when the card's effect was interrupted by a different effect. Now, there are two different types of effects in Yu-Gi-Oh! Mandatory and optional. Mandatory effects must resolve no matter what, and as such, there's no wiggle room for it to miss the timing. A card like Dust Knight can't miss the timing because its effect is mandatory.
On flip,
There's no "you can" in its effect text, meaning that the effect has to resolve unless negated.
I see, but if there is a "you can do this," then there is a way to mess up the timing.
Next type of effect is an optional effect that can't miss timing. These are effects that let you choose whether or not to activate it, but preface the effect with an if, meaning that as long as the condition is met, the effect will resolve. An example of this is with Dawn Knight, who says if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can send one light monster from your deck to the graveyard. Since the effect says if it happens, as long as it's sent to the graveyard, you can send the light monster you want. You met the condition, now you get the effect. The final category is optional effects that can miss timing. These are effects that let you choose whether or not to activate them, but say when instead of if.
There you go. There's a specification. It can only do this during like a specific phase, right?
In cases like this, the card meeting its condition has to be the last thing that happens, or else the card will miss its activation window and fizzle out, making it miss the timing. To round out our Knight examples, Armageddon Knight says when this card is summoned, you can send one dark monster from your deck to the graveyard.
When this card is summoned.
If another effect were to happen during the time the card is summoned, the
It
effect
misses timing.
will fail. Say you use the
Okay.
effects of Goblindenberg and Marauding Captain to summon Armageddon Knight. Which one will make Armageddon Knight miss his timing? Correct answer? Goblindenberg, because Captain's effect simply summons the monster, and that's it. Goblin's effect, meanwhile, will summon the monster, but then switch itself to defense position. Since the last thing to happen since Armageddon
Is
Knight's
Goblin
summon
switching?
wasn't the summon itself, but rather Goblindenberg switching itself to defense
I
position, the effect
see.
fails, and Arma doesn't get to send anything.
Okay.
The when effect's condition being met has to be the absolute last thing to happen since the condition was met for the effect to work. Another example is with the card Dupe Frog, a card infamous for such a problem. When it is sent to the graveyard, you can add a frog monster from your deck to your hand.
But I think in the previous video where we saw, I think that was Farfa, mistiming on Dupe Frog was because it was sent to the grave, but then the other Thunder Dragon activated, and so Dupe Frog ended up missing timing.
Because of that, unless all that happens is Dupe Frog being sent to the graveyard, it won't work. Destroy it with a card like Soul Taker that will gain you life points after the monster is destroyed? Dupe Frog won't activate, because you gained life points, and therefore Dupe Frog being destroyed wasn't the last thing to happen.
Gotcha.
Use it for the summon of a Synchro, Fusion, or Link monster? Dupe Frog won't activate, because the summon
Oh, because it was sent to the graveyard, but it was used for the summon, so the summon happens, the special summon happens. Oh my goodness, man. It really feels like Dupe Frog is just incredibly inconsistent then. But is it like a cornerstone of like a frog deck or something? Or like a water deck? I know that there was like a really good frog that you can use as a starter, and probably Dupe Frog would search that out for you, but yeah, I would assume missing timing on this is just going to be a massive pain in the ass, so I don't know if it's even worth it.
and therefore Super Duper Frog being sent to the graveyard wasn't the last thing to happen. The absolute worst example of this rule is with the entire Yang Zing archetype. All of whom
I've heard of the issues with the Yang Zing archetype. I never played them, but I have heard people talking about this when I was initially learning about timing and missing timing and all that. I don't recall exactly what the Yang Zing monsters did, though.
Have the effect that when they're destroyed by battle or a card effect, you can special summon a Yang Zing monster from deck. Something as simple as your card getting destroyed, then your opponent chains Mystical Space Typhoon to destroy one of your spell
rip.
cards, will stop your plans cold. Because the dragons wanted their time in the sun and now they can't have it! Yang Zings are infamous for having all the potential in the world to miss every single instance of timing on every monster in the archetype. Some of the most beautiful card art in the game gone to waste because they decided to write when instead of if.
Bruh. I do agree, though. These card arts are amazing, and now that I think about it, I think Yang Zing was in Soul Sword. Or at least you'd play like a couple of Yang Zing Synchro monsters in Soul Sword.
Now, why did Konami word them this way? I don't fucking know. It's one of Yu-Gi-Oh's most needlessly complicated rules, that while it can make for interesting card design when intentional, more often makes for decks
Not
that feel
intentional.
completely worthless when scratching your leg too hard makes them miss timing. Tell me it was on purpose that Celestial Sword Iados misses timing when used with the effect of Guardian Iados! It's her sword! Yu-Gi-Oh! Jargon. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a language unto itself. If you pop the baby in Yu-Gi-Oh!, you're just destroying baby Sarasaurus to get a dino from deck. You pop the baby in real life, and you're never seeing sunlight again.
Indeed. Ideally. But I mean, you could say this about basically any sort of fandom. They're gonna have their, I guess, in-jokes or just different slang that you would use in order to refer to very common effects that you'd see over and over again.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Has developed its own keywords specific to it that have become...
Well, the reason for that is because there aren't any keywords developed by Konami, so we gotta make up our own. And it's much easier than saying the full thing over and over again when it's something that you do so often.
Common tongue due to certain cards' effects on the game. And while there are plenty of terms that apply to other games as well as Yu-Gi-Oh!, like Beat Stick, Advantage, Mill, and Staple, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a few of its own. One of the first cards to ever earn this sort of distinction is Reinforcements of the Army. This card lets you add a level 4 or lower warrior monster from your deck to your hand, and is such a ubiquitous and useful card in a ton of decks that any card with an effect like it to add a certain type of card from your deck to your hand is called a Rhoda, which is Reinforcements, but abbreviated.
It's all coming back to me now.
So a card like Bonfire is Rhoda but for Pyro monsters, Gladiator's Proving Ground is Rhoda but for Gladiator beasts, and Scrapyard is Rhoda but for Scrap Tuner monsters. Oh, I get it! So then Aritama must be a Rhoda for Spirit monsters, right?
No,
actually. See, Rhoda is usually used for spell and trap cards. When a monster has the effect to search out other cards upon summon, that's called a Stratos, named after elemental hero Stratos. This was the first majorly used and successful card that had this sort of effect. And every monster, like Satellar Knight Deneb, Ninja Grandmaster Hanzo, and Ancient Gear Wyvern, are all called Stratoses, for Satellar Knights, Ninjas, and Ancient Gears. Cards that are a little less useful are called Garnets, which are different from bricks for a very specific reason. Garnet gets its name from Gem Knight Garnet, the card that was most frequently used alongside Brilliant Fusion, a card that could summon a useful...
Garnet, I believe. Okay, it's slowly coming back to me, but I think it's something that is very valuable, but you never want them in your hand. So it's not a complete brick, but like, goddamn, why did I have to draw you?
Gem Knight Fusion monster, using monsters from the main deck exclusively. Garnet was the best Gem Knight monster to use for this card, because it had the highest attack, meaning that if you drew it, it might be kinda useful. Garnets are a card better served staying in the deck for an effect later, rather than being useful in the hand. All garnets are bricks, but not all bricks are garnets. Another good example is Predaplant Darlingtonia Cobra.
Oh my god, yeah, because you would summon this with the other Predaplant that you normal summon, right? In order to go into Predaplant Anaconda, or whatever Link summon that you would do. Or Fusion summon, I think. You could also use it for that.
If you special summon it off the effect of Predaplant or for Scorpio,
Yeah,
great
yeah,
card,
yeah.
one of the best. If you draw it too soon, completely worthless, one of the worst. A monster that's far from useless is called a Towers. Towers refers to a boss monster in Yu-Gi-Oh! With a blanket protection against all other card effects. Funny enough, the card which Towers is named for, Apocalifort Towers, isn't a true Towers monster, as it can be affected by a small pool of monster effects with a higher level. Small, until Link's, that is, because then it gets absolutely shit on. But the name is cool, so Blackwing Full Armor Master, X-Pearly Noir, and Cyber Dark and Dragon all get to be called Towers. Moving on to the spell side of things, and we get terms like Foolish. In this case, referring to Foolish Burial. This refers to any card with an effect to send a card from the deck to the graveyard. So think a card like Unizombie, or Mementotlin Goblin. Book is a reference to the card Book of Moon, a classic spell that can set monsters into face-down defense position. So anything with a similar effect is said to have a book effect.
Yeah.
Ghost Trick Neko Musume and Evil Swarm Nightmare are examples of book effects. Compulse comes from Compulsory Evacuation Device, and refers to any card with an effect to return a card from the field to the hand, also known as a bounce. Magispector Kirin and Neospatian Grand Mole are fantastic examples of compulses. All of these and more are going to be vital to learn how to play the game. Not just to help you understand what cards are quickly and determine their value, but also to make it sound like you know what you're doing, because...
I guess so, yeah. But I'm really glad that Bumbles covered it here, because if anybody's watching this, they're sort of like a casual to Yu-Gi-Oh! And they maybe want to learn how to start playing it. I'm sure when you're learning and maybe your friend is teaching you, they may use some of this jargon. And having to explain it is a whole nother process that maybe not as clear as examples here. So it'll definitely help a lot of people get a jump start when they're trying to learn how to play the game.
That's really half the game. The Shadow Duelist.
What the?
It's the worst thing Konami does. So Konami's always trying to find new ways to breach the cultural mainstream.
What are we talking
They'll
about?
release a steel card of Marshmelon and Hot Topic, and that's usually where the effort stops. Master Duel, though, was a breakthrough. That gave more players than ever before a reason to get back into dueling, and a lot of them stayed. The problem now was, how do we get more in after that? Well, that's quite simple. The worst idea you could have.
What?
The Shadow Duelist. This was, is, a tournament you can qualify for by joining the Shadow Duelist's Discord server. And if you were selected, you would play in a 32-person tournament. That sounds outright banal. How is this the worst thing Konami's ever done? Well, that's where the fun comes in. See, in the kayfabe of the tournament, there's an evil duelist who has taken over Yu-Gi-Oh? It doesn't really make sense, but he's somehow gotten Konami by the balls and is forcing them to host a tournament he has organized. The Shadow Duelist is like a demon or something, and he wants to duel people.
This is freaking funny, dude. It's like, let me live out my tuning dreams of being the Shadow Duelist and hosting this tournament so we can collect all this fight energy in order to resurrect an evil god. And it's like, brother, you're not playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore. This is King of Fighters now. The basic concept of inviting people, or I guess, just randomly selected players to come and join a tournament, I think it's pretty neat. We really did not need the Shadow Duelist. I feel kind of bad whoever's acting as the Shadow Duelist, or maybe they really enjoy it. Who knows? Maybe this is just them having fun. But regardless, yeah. Probably not the greatest idea out there.
He has a Switch. And he's a celebrity? Throughout the weeks leading up to a Shadow Duelist tournament, they'll post cryptic hints on social media, trying to clue you in to who the celebrity could be. Now that's cool and all, that's great, but I kind of want to more know the why of the Shadow Duelist. Like, why are they doing this? The Shadow Duelist was named Nocturne, and he would eventually make his presence known at the finals of the Shadow Duelist tournament.
That's hilarious,
where through the good graces of a hacker group or something, the stream was fraught with technical difficulties.
Nocturne, what are you doing here?
No audio?
Oh man, I just
No! Oh boy, and Nocturne being your name? Let's pick like the most edgiest generic name for an evil villain ever. And honestly, I think Nocturne from League of Legends pulls it off because that's his whole thing. That's the basis of his design. He's meant to be edgy, right? Here, it's just, we tried. There was effort here. I don't know if it was good effort though.
I can't believe Nocturne is actually here.
I'm at a loss for words. No. Nocturne, the Shadow Duelist, has, I guess, joined the broadcast. Nocturne, was all that static that was happening, was that you?
Oh. Just so ominous.
I guess so. I guess it was. Why are you doing all this? Why did you bring us all here today?
I want to hide under my chair. Oh, no. Oh.
Once Nocturne actually got on the big stage and got to broadcast his message, he didn't really have much to say. He kind of just nodded along and played with a fog machine as the poor hosts had to play improv. Nocturne, what are your goals? What do you plan to do? Can you please state in plain English what you are doing and why you are doing it?
Would you please repeat the question? I can't hear you. This smoke machine is loud as fuck.
But at least Nocturne would duel the winner of the tournament, right? He is the Shadow Duelist, after all, so he's gonna show up with an embarrassing Dark Magician anime deck and lose in 2 rounds, right? No! Nocturne didn't duel! Nocturne has no reason to be doing this, especially when we find out he's Zayn Malik! What the f*** are you doing, Zayn? Why? Why did you do this? For his part, Zayn Malik actually did then go into his history with the game, and when asked what his favorite cards were, he mentioned Stardust Dragon and showed off a binder of cards. You know what? Just for saying anything other than Dark Magician or Blue Eyes and naming a specific Yu-Gi-Oh game as his favorite, I'm gonna say that's pretty cool. All right, Zayn, you're cool. Yeah. So this was a confusing disaster.
Okay, we could have done this so much better. We really did need to do all this. I think like a guest appearance from a celebrity probably would have been fine. I get the vision. I don't think we really did it. I don't think this was the way.
Can't wait for the next one. On October 28th, 2024, a new tournament was announced with our new Shadow Duelist, Axel.
Axel. Got it memorized.
The music. I've watched duelists like you from afar. Now I'm getting in on the action.
I'm
trying to rest of the duel. Just like I'm
Are you actually gonna duel though?
So grab your deck and get ready to duel.
Holy shit, new Nocturne f***s! This was already way better than the last tournament. And as though it couldn't get any better, Axel was going to duel the winner of the tournament.
Yo!
So the tournament goes ahead, blah, blah, blah. And the celebrity this time is revealed to be WWE wrestler Xavier Woods. Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston would go on to insult their best friend who broke his neck in a match and become a pair of bastards like a week after this tournament. So we can only assume that the soul of the Shadow Duelist is still inside of him and corrupting him. This will end with a Kashtira mirror match in the main event of WrestleMania 41. Oh, and Xavier did duel! And it's the saddest thing you've ever seen!
Oh no.
You had a visibly confused and frustrated Xavier playing against full power Melodious, and he got f***ing washed.
Oh shit.
You might have a good poker face, but this is Yu-Gi-Oh, buddy. Konami live streamed that their game had a shitty new player experience. That's called advertising.
Oh.
These events are really really weird. Not just for the obvious reasons, but they feel like they go too far, but also not far enough. If you're going
That is actually a pretty good way to describe it, even though it doesn't fundamentally make sense. Where it's like they don't lay into the joke enough for it to be just corny over the top that it actually becomes good. But we really didn't have to do all this. We could have just had like a celebrity guest appearance from somebody who maybe actually plays Yu-Gi-Oh! I think would be really cool. Maybe have them talk about their history with the game and whatnot, and maybe a face that people enjoy seeing. I don't know. Hell, get one of the YouTube content creators up there. People who, actually make content for Yu-Gi-Oh! Or have dedicated their entire lives, basically, or their entire careers to Yu-Gi-Oh! But on the other hand, we had an idea, and we tried it. It didn't really work out, and that's just how things go. There's been plenty of things that we've done here on the channel that didn't really work out and were really, really bad. But that's what we thought of, and eventually they sort of evolved into new and better things, or are still slowly improving. Like, I definitely think the character design on ranks videos, which some of you guys may have seen around, could certainly be much, much better than they currently are. Like, I'm still trying to figure that shit out, but it's more of a matter of a trial and error, which, may be the case here. Now, obviously, it's a little bit different because Konami's a massive company, and I am just a dude. just one dude trying to make all this go together, and I don't really know what I'm doing. But yeah, from that sort of perspective, I can get it.
going to do a Swiss-style tournament in Master Duel, just do that. You did do something like that! Master Duel used to have a series of tournaments called the Challenger Cup, where you'd earn points based on how you placed in tournaments across a set time. Super cool! They're only in Europe now. The Shadow Duelist is the Americanized import of the Challenger Cups. They get Magic Roundabout, we get Dougal. But at the same time, if you're going to have a tournament about a duelist in a scary mask who wants to make people duel for some reason, go all out! Have him interfere with matches, make up weird rules. If they're gonna go dumb, go full brain dead. This event would actually be much better suited for Duel Links, where events like this that could include in-game effects like their skills wouldn't be out of place. But since Master Duel is more popular, Konami tackles the event with the grace of a hammer smashing a square peg into a round hole. They're also really bad at advertising these tournaments. There is no advertising for the Shadow Duelist events in Master Duel itself. And at time of writing, they've announced a new tournament, thank God, for March 8th. It is March 12th! And they still haven't revealed anything! I have insider information. Let's just say LeBron will be busy this weekend. I hope Konami does one of these a week going forward. I love them so much.
I could see why people maybe love them. I could see why people maybe hate them. It is certainly an idea that I'm very curious to see where it goes from here. I think that's going to be my takeaway from this one.
Remote duels. The COVID-19 pandemic presented difficult questions to every facet of society, some of which required creative answers. Businesses and schools had to go remote due to the dangers of gathering groups together during a pandemic. Services like Grubhub and DoorDash exploded due to people's fears over going outside, and a hobby like Yu-Gi-Oh! Was rendered near unplayable. Yu-Gi-Oh! Events like WCQs and YCSs required hundreds of players to be in close proximity to each other, and during a pandemic? No, that'd be irresponsible at best, and a super spreader event at worst. Konami wisely cancelled all pay-per-play events, and we're now left in a really dangerous spot. They make a lot of money off of in-person events, and without that, they were up a creek. No online simulator, except for Duel Links, meant they had no way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Across the globe. Remember, Master Duel wouldn't be out for another 2 years by the start of the pandemic.
Honestly, if Master Duel was there right during that, then I think it would have exploded. Even more so than it did on release. Because I think Master Duel did really well for itself back then. Still probably doing okay now, but maybe getting a little bit stale. But I mean, of course, like, how would they know, right?
So, what were they supposed to do? Well, that's where remote duels came in. Remote duels are exactly what they sound like. Yu-Gi-Oh! Played remotely over the internet using a service like Discord to facilitate a game. Both players would set up a webcam and playmat, and from there attempt to play Yu-Gi-Oh! While abiding by the rules Konami set forward to ensure everybody played fairly. You would have to position your camera in a way that made sure the whole field was visible and not being obstructed. You had to clearly announce your actions so the other player could understand what was going on, and allow for pauses if there was ever a drop in internet quality or if there was lag. It was far from a perfect solution, but in the time where nobody had any idea what was going to happen next, this was about as good a solution as Konami could get without rushing a complex simulator like Master Duel out the door 2 years before it was ready. Konami did the best they could, but I'm not going to give them too much credit. Remote duels as a concept had growing pains in the way the Incredible Hulk has growing pains. Initially, these problems would come in the form of cards that had no way to properly resolve without the duelists being next to each other. Think a card like Parasite Parasite. How am I supposed to shuffle a card into my opponent's deck if I'm in America and my opponent's in Europe? As a result, Konami banned a series of cards that interacted with your opponent's deck, like Ancient Telescope, Flower Cardian Peony with Butterfly, and Transmission Gear, which, while it doesn't mess with the opponent's deck, you're not going to be able to play a proper game of rock, paper, scissors over Skype. Initially, Konami attempted to set up a central Discord hub you could use for remote play, and you can imagine how quickly this was dismantled by the feral populace of early COVID sickos who had just lost all decorum. And now, the death of the Konami Remote Play Discord server. The problems began as soon as the first person entered the server. As it turns out, whoever set it up had no idea how to set up a Discord server.
Wait a minute. I'm assuming that we did not get any of the permissions done correctly, yeah?
As @everybody was left on.
Oh shit. Okay, that is most certainly the first thing you gotta make sure that nobody has access to except the people who should. And yeah, this is like a whole public Discord server too, with potentially the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Fan base streaming in, so you can't mess this up. Thankfully, our Discord is just like members only, and so it's much, much easier to manage things. Even if we get something wrong, like it's just like a few people who let us know as well that there's something wrong with the system. I would imagine, though, that if Konami is creating this Discord server, they'd probably hire a team to do this, but I'm assuming the team is just incompetent.
2 hours later, as the bare bones moderation staff was finally able to turn it off, they ran into whole new problems, as Konami had not boosted their server. On Discord, you can buy boosts for a server, which will up the quality of streams and audio.
Yeah.
Konami is a multi-million-dollar gaming company with more money than most of us would joke about having, and in the middle of a pandemic where money was tight, they started trying to bum Discord dollars off of people who just wanted to play Floodgate Eldritch.
Are you shitting me? We need a server boost here. Who gives a server boost here will get 2 OTS packs added to his account, which will be shipped with the YCS prizes. If you have Discord Nitro 2 boost, are for free. We only need 2 boosts to add the better video quality, so please check it before you boost. Once you boosted the server, make a screenshot and send it to me on Sunday evening. This is sad. I appreciate the people who do boost our LegitWeebs server here, but like, I don't ever make any posts begging for people to do that. That is really pathetic, actually. From a multi-million-dollar company. I do not at all envy the team that has to manage this Discord, or honestly, some of the decisions that were made here. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Once people found out just how modest the moderation was, they started posting the most heinous stuff they could in whatever channels they could get away with it in. There was some harmless stuff. People posting showdown stat spreads in the deck list section, or reciting the Unabomber's manifesto in the detailed product feedback channel, and some of it was worse.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. We don't need to go into that. There is a very, very good reason why when we started this channel, we made sure that we would only have a private Discord server. Even back when we didn't have like 1,000 subs and there was barely anybody in the server because, well, we didn't have a whole lot of audience or members. But at the time when we started doing YouTube, a lot of indie VTubers were getting these sort of folks in their public Discord servers who would post the most heinous shit ever. Images and whatnot of stuff that will get you banned and you'd probably have to bleach your eyes after seeing it. It's just this whole like hate campaign against VTubers in general, I guess. So we kind of avoided that, thankfully, because we made it private. Regardless though, this is sort of just incompetence from both Konami as well as the team that was hired to manage this. Like, neither of them were equipped at all for managing this massive group of people online in a place where you can basically do whatever and not have any real consequences happen. But I suppose that's just the nature of the internet. Like, we're used to it at this point.
There was the running of the Dougs, where everybody changed their name to Dizif, went in chat, and just made noise. Not a lot of this really mattered, though, since the server was taken down after about 12 hours.
12
Luckily,
hours.
It's not all lost. As before the server died, the match sorting bot that broke immediately was invited to a different server, which it inexplicably accepted and now lives uselessly to this day. Similar problems were found during the first remote YCS, but this time a lot more of the problems were player individual, like professional player Ryan Levy being locked out of his room and having to break his door down to get back in. The Italian Discord server just pirated the new Scooby-Doo movie that was supposed to kill movie theaters during the YCS. It was all cool. Even with all of this, it was a fine way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Nobody enjoyed it. It was just kind of the only thing we had.
Okay, yeah. Fair. The main thing about it is that this is kind of the only Band-Aid solution they could provide because Master Duel just wasn't ready yet. And I'd much prefer they wait for Master Duel to be finished and in working proper state than to rush it out during this pandemic in order to cash in on that, because that would just be a horrible look and first impressions are very important. So the idea for it wasn't bad, it's just the implementation of it plus the whole Discord integration was just an absolute failure.
Thankfully, with looser COVID restrictions and the rise of Master Duel, remote play has become increasingly less prominent. But for all its faults, we still have to appreciate that it existed at all. How else were we going to get the story of somebody losing a round via door violence? Speed duels.
Heard of these.
It really can't be overstated just how good a thing Duel Links was for the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh, yeah,
Its simplified format made for the perfect re-entry point for old players to get up to speed, as well as introduce new players to the game.
Yeah.
It also serves as the closest thing Konami is willing to give us to an alternate format. The shrunken board and skills give it a totally different feel from the regular game.
I wonder why we don't get more alternative formats to Yu-Gi-Oh! I feel like that's something like a lot of other card games have provided in the past. Like, I think there's a lot of formats for Magic, but this is just what I've heard. I don't really play Magic myself. And even something like Shadowverse at some points will have certain festivals where you can maybe combine two different archetypes together to make an absolutely busted deck and just play against each other for fun and stuff like that. And I suppose the fact that it has rotation and unlimited formats in and of themselves is already providing new content based on whatever rotates in and what rotates out. I suppose the issue comes when you have cards that were specifically built for a format. And so if you try to change the format and how it works, you'd have to come up with new cards, and that takes a lot of time and money that they're not really willing to invest if people are just still content with playing the game as it is.
And it's clear that, to this day, the game has a massive and very strong fan base. So, Konami of America decided in 2017 to start tinkering with a physical version of Duel Links. This would take the form of one of the rarest products ever released, the Speed Duel demo boxes. These contained sets of cards for players at participating stores to test out, and act as game testers for the official launch of physical Duel Links.
That's pretty
Speed
cool.
Duels, as they would come to be known, would be revealed at YCS Pasadena in 2018. And describing it as a physical Duel Links is about as accurate as it gets. It used the exact same rule set as Duel Links, with the reduced board size, hand size, and life point total, while doing away with Main Phase 2 and giving players skills they can use to enhance their decks. While there would be growing pains due to part of the appeal of Duel Links, being able to play anywhere, being lost, this could serve as a phenomenal on-ramp to get Duel Links players into playing the proper game. They start on the app, purchase the Speed Duel products, play in person, get a taste, and graduate up to the advanced formats. The skeletons of the product were there, now Konami just had to support it. Only problem was Konami had no good idea about how to support Speed Duels.
Yeah, there you go.
See, they made the mistake of assuming they could sell Speed Duel packs the same way they sold both normal packs and Duel Links packs. Speed Duel packs consisted of 4 cards with no guaranteed rares. No
What?
super rares, no ultra rares, not even basic rare cards were guaranteed when you picked up a pack. These
hell?
packs, packaged alongside actual Yu-Gi-Oh packs, could contain 3 normal monsters and an equip spell that changes the battle position of a dinosaur monster with 700 defense during the end phase. These packs not only contained little to no worthwhile cards, making them feel awful to open, they were priced and sold the same as packs like Dark Neostorm and
This is so weird. Why do we do it this way? Why didn't we sell, like, starter packs in order to get people into the game? If you're starting a new product, you kind of want people to be able to access it as easily as possible rather than selling them this gacha system with no guarantees. What the hell, man?
Savage Strike. You could either get Borreload Savage Dragon or Fortress Whale. Worst part is, I think Fortress Whale might win more people over. The 4 packs released for Speed Duel might be the worst products Konami's ever released. No cards worth getting for a format that was massively undersupported meant these things were destined to rot on shelves.
Oh
Events
my
had
God.
been planned for Speed Duels, including making them an
Did people
official
even
side
show
event
up?
at tournaments, but due to the format's lack of player base, nothing ever materialized. These packs would still most likely be dying on the vine at Walmarts and Targets, if not for the pandemic, when really dumb people with too many cents and not enough sense bought up every trading card pack because United States champion Logan Paul convinced them they all had Charizard in them. This blonde dickhead opening up a Charizard is the worst thing that has ever happened to card games. Speaking of the pandemic, it looked as though this would be the killing blow to Speed Duels, what with the tightening of the belt across the board. Except Konami did something it rarely does, the right thing. Speed Duels going into the pandemic got a complete reworking into a totally different product. They released a brand new format for Yu-Gi-Oh! Card releases, a box. Speed Duel Box Battle City would release and contain 8 20-card decks, each one fully constructed and containing brand new skill cards and powerful monsters like Jinzo.
Thank you. That is literally what I said. Why would you sell them as these gacha packs? Just sell them as an actual starter deck so people can get into it and then maybe invest further later on down the line if they want to, if they enjoy the format. I am so glad that they're not that dumb. Because honestly, the way I was expecting the story to end was them just abandoning the project entirely because, you know, not making any money. So why would we do it? Why would we change anything?
As well, it would contain a further pool of randomly selected cards, including 8 secret rares. This is one of the best products Konami's ever released.
Yes.
Being priced fairly, containing loads of value, and having a lot of contextual appeal. Are you an anime nostalgia Yugi boomer? Well, then now you can play with the cards from the anime
play
arc
Battle
you love
City.
so much.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the metagame of Speed Duels? This box did more to shake up the game than anything else by introducing 200 new cards at once. Did you hunger for alternate formats like draft and sealed only? This product seemed to have been made with that in mind. Konami had done it. They had revitalized a dead alt format with a single product. And from that point forward, remote events that carried speed duels saw their numbers quintuple overnight. Konami would stick with this as the main way to support the speed duel format,
if it works.
releasing 6 more over the next 4 years, each one adding on to a winning formula. Unfortunately, the end of speed duels came as unceremoniously as its revival did, with the Battle City Finals box being the final product released. And from here on out, the format is no longer supported. But what did the speed duel formats look like?
Why did we drop support for it? Even after all this change, was it just still not making enough money for them to even consider continuing it? Because once again, having more formats is always a good thing. Getting people into the game in whatever way that they enjoy playing it, I think, is great. And it should be supported, but it's Konami, so what would you expect, I guess?
Well, just like with Duel Links itself, the formats looked nothing like they did in Advanced Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's mostly down to how the various skills gave unplayable cards brand new life. Cards like Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth and Night Serpent Dragon became notorious bosses due to their ease of summon and insane power level. Weevil Underwood became something of a speed duel demon, as several cards meant to support him were limited. His skill card, My Precious Queen, is the only card in the whole format that's out-and-out banned. Decks like Red Eyes, Gearfried, Spell Counters, Cyber Angels, Unions,
Cyber Angels are cool. Played them too.
Ratbox, and Gaia all saw stints of playability, with decks that came along later, like Fossils, being complete menaces, despite never doing anything in the TCG. Now that the candle has finally burnt out, Speed Duel will be remembered as one of the best alternate ways to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Konami ever devised, as well as having a bit of a tainted legacy.
Yeah.
See, Speed Duels were a Konami of America invention. It's exclusive to TCG regions and not in Japan. In Japan, or the OCG, they had something a little bit different and a lot more successful.
We're gonna get into
Rush
that?
Duels.
Rush Duels. Okay, I've heard of Rush Duels too. I always thought like Speed Duels and Rush Duels were interchangeable, but I guess it's a TCG versus OCG sort of thing. Maybe in a similar format, just packaged differently or played differently. I don't know.
So you know how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a children's card game that no child could actually learn? Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an extremely fast and new player-hostile game that moves at a speed most people struggle to keep up with, even if they know what's going on. That's why most starter decks now come with a cyanide tablet. Trying to get new players into Yu-Gi-Oh! Has always been an issue. And Konami finally found a way to fix it, and that's by giving up. Instead of trying to slow the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Down or convince you that it's easy to learn, Konami found it easier to simply start over from zero and try again. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duels. Rush Duel is a new game that runs parallel to Yu-Gi-Oh!
Actually, aren't like the newer anime seasons for Yu-Gi-Oh! Also within the Rush Duel format? Or like are used to introduce new Rush Duel cards? I don't know anything about like the latest seasons that have dropped.
Which features a new card format and a new rule set. Instead of one normal summon per turn, you get infinite. At the start of every turn, you draw as many cards as you can until you have 5 in your hand. There's now only a draw, main, battle, and end phase. Cards now plainly list what their activation requirements are and what effects they have. Brand new types are introduced, including the main deck Galaxy, as well as new ones for specific fusion monsters. Like when a spellcaster and a warrior fuse, it's not a spellcaster or a warrior, but now a magical knight. Or if a machine fuses with a non-machine monster, that makes a cyborg. There is no more damage step. There's no continuous spells or traps, quick play spells.
Okay, so essentially what you're saying, Bumbles, is they removed all the complicated things that didn't really enhance the game that much, and just boiled it down to pure old Yu-Gi-Oh! And fighting your friends with cards.
Or counter traps. Any cards that were those types and then imported into Rush Duel are now just plain cards. There are no chains. Targeting doesn't exist. There's no banishing. Archetypes don't exist. All of these things we associate with being key features of Yu-Gi-Oh! Aren't in Rush. So what does Rush have over the main game?
Yeah.
I just told you all the improvements. Guys, I'm sorry, we completely lost. Rush Duel is kicking our ass right now. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! Remade with the knowledge of what makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Best.
Exactly, yeah. Now, there are a few things there that are missing that I really enjoy, but I can see why Rush Duel is pretty popular because I feel like the onboarding process for Rush Duel would be a lot easier than what current modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. We simply cleared out all the complicated stuff and kept the essence of what made Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! For a lot of people. And this certainly came from learning from all those years of making really complicated cards that were hard to understand, and I suppose receiving feedback on all that. That being said, I am very curious because, well, I'm only learning about it from this video, but for any of you guys who have tried out the format or seen the format or whatever, like, what are your thoughts on it? Do you enjoy Rush Duel over, like, the main way to play the game in the TCG or, I guess, regular OCG? Or is this really not your thing?
When Yu-Gi-Oh! Started, it was Magic the Gathering, but shit. When Rush Duel started, it was Yu-Gi-Oh! But good. Games are extremely back and forth. You feel like you could win or lose at any moment, which makes it so exciting. The loop of
That is a good point, because modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! Makes me really feel like if I go second, I'm more than likely already lost if I don't draw an out. So there's really no excitement or anticipation within the match because there is no back and forth. One could say that inherently, that's how card games are, but by lowering the power level and removing all the complexity to it, it probably allows for the format to be much slower and for there to actually be back and forth happening.
of gameplay in Rush Duels is extremely good feeling. You get to draw a bunch of cards, play a load of monsters, summon out big monsters that crash into your opponent's stuff. The game itself is so simple to understand. You start the turn with 5 cards in your hand. Ideally, you want to get rid of as many as possible to draw as many as possible.
Because, yeah, you
during
get
the
to
start of
draw
the
up
next
to 5.
turn. Winning along the way might also prove advantageous. They put rituals in the extra deck. How am I supposed to say this is better? The updated card borders leap past.
Rituals in the extra deck is interesting. I never thought about that because I think rituals inherently are always going to be in hand in main deck, but it's always so hard to pull them out because of certain conditions and whatnot. Them always being available sounds like a really nice quality of life update for the game.
What Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been stuck with for decades. I love the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card borders. They're iconic. But the Rush Duel formatting is just better. The actual printings of the cards as well is massively improved. New beautiful rarities as well as gimmicks that other card games have been doing for decades at this point. Card art leaving the frames of its border, multiple alt arts for various
sick.
cards. It's like if Yu-Gi-Oh! Acknowledged the passage of time. Rush Duel is an incredible product that would no doubt do great in America. It's so successful in Japan that 2 of the highest grossing TCGs every year are Yu-Gi-Oh! And Rush Duel. We can even
Nice.
avoid having to print pack upon pack of garbage vanillas to start from scratch. The box format of speed duels is perfect for this type of game.
100%.
Big box
I would much prefer that Konami moving forward, whenever they release things, release them as a box so people can actually get a functional deck to play with. Because having to invest so much money into maybe getting the things that you need in order to put a deck together sounds horrendous as an onboarding process. That I think would turn everybody away from the game. Only the most dedicated people will still be there, which I don't think is going to be a big enough audience to support that kind of thing.
starter material is huge in TCGs, thanks to Pokemon and Lorcana. So all Konami has to do is release it in the West, and it'll be a smash hit! Except they won't! Rush Duels are going on their 5-year anniversary this year in April.
Oh my goodness.
And Konami still won't let the gringos play! Rush Duels have been a Japanese and Korean exclusive product for almost half
Why?
a decade now, and there's still no word on when we're gonna get it! We got a taste of it with the Switch game Rush Duel Dawn of the Battle Royale, and the anime series is airing on Disney XD right now! But as for the TCG, nothing! Heck, even
Okay, so this video has been out for a little bit now. Have they announced anything at all in regards to Rush Duels? at least in any sort of format for the TCG or in English at all? I asked the question earlier, but maybe none of us have been able to experience it because, we're just not in Japan. Or Korea too, right? I think Bumble said Korea as well. Because genuinely, like, I think this would be a great format to introduce my friends into Yu-Gi-Oh! With. Because having to teach them Master Duel is such a hurdle that while somebody like, say, Kiwi and Survey maybe like Yu-Gi-Oh!, but it's just so daunting and they don't have enough motivation to go over that hurdle to fully experience, Yu-Gi-Oh! As it's meant to be played. But with something like this, it could be such a good onboarding process. Plus, the card art looks really damn cool. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a shame that it's only locked over in the OCG.
Dawn of the Battle Royale was completely fumbled. That game got at least 3 content updates in Japan to add new cards and post-game content, and we just didn't get any of that. As for the anime, I really don't understand why they chose to air it in America if they don't have a product to go alongside it.
You're not selling anything.
I suppose since the Gallop era of animes ended with Vrains, they want something on the airwaves to keep Yu-Gi-Oh! In people's minds, but there isn't an associated product you can buy with this show. The cards they use, the dual discs, you don't get any of that. You can play it in Duel Links, but then you have to play Duel Links, so I guess that's off the table. Shame too, because the Rush Duel team has a great sense of humor when it comes to archetype design. What I mean is that there's an archetype in Rush Duel that combines Bean Soldier, Cannon Soldier, Penguin Soldier, and Black Luster Soldier into one by giving them matching tracksuits. These are Bean Soul Jersey, Cannon Soul Jersey, Penguin Soul Jersey, and Black Luster Soul Jersey, Envoy of the Drying.
That's hilarious.
Then there's the Bubble Era deck, with cards like Dian Kito the Cure Master, Mystical Elf, and Kana the Swords Mistress all becoming fan dancers and Gongoro girls, and are based on the 1980s Japanese financial bubble, where people had more money to afford going out at night and partying. In the anime, this deck is played by a girl named Mimiya Mimi, who is 38 years old. Remember that Soul Jersey deck I just talked about? The person who uses those in the anime is a Jersey Devil. Jersey Devil. There's also the previously mentioned Seat Bastion, who is the main villain's chair who comes to take a swipe at the main characters, and his deck is full of chairs. I mean, use what you know. They also have a lot more fun with the effects of the cards themselves, given the fact that they're not afraid to make some of them jokes. Like All for Naught Bubble Burst, a part of that Bubble Era deck, which has the effect to reduce a monster's attack points by 1 million. It's meant to represent the crash of the economic bubble, and functionally just reduces a monster's attack points to 0 because there are no monsters with 1 million attack. But if it ever came down to a duel to decide the fate of the world between Dawn 1000 and Mimiya Mimi, Dawn 1000's 100,000 attack Numeronius Numeronia is going down.
Hell yeah, dude. Look, it's minus 1 million to make a statement. It's not the effect itself that matters. It's what it means to the players.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a great game. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But I want to play with Rush Duels. It's really fun, it's a completely different feeling game from the original, they can exist side by side, just give us the game!
Man, that really is a damn shame that after Bumbles talks about this really cool format, you guys don't get to experience it. I guess only through the game itself, but like, that's not the same feeling, yeah? I myself don't really have the money or the funds to invest into buying like physical cards. I gotta buy more important stuff like food and rent and whatnot. But I can only imagine having the deck itself in your hand and playing the cards with somebody sitting across from you on the table would be like such a fun experience. But yeah, I think that's probably a good note to end on, so I'm gonna wrap things up here for today, my dudes. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Hope you guys enjoyed your time here. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will catch you guys in the next part. Later, dudes.